Microsoft is raising Game Pass prices across the board. Game Pass Ultimate, which includes Game Pass, access to all of the games, and then also online play, is going from $16.99 a month to $19.99 a month. They must have raised. I thought it was still $15, so this must not be the only increase that we've had recently. PC Game Pass is being raised by $2 from $9.99 to $11.99 per month. Game Pass for consoles, which was access to the games but none of the online play stuff, that's being removed entirely. That was $9.99 a month. And it's being replaced by Game Pass Standard, which is access to the library, but not day one brand new first-party games, and that's $14.99 per month. And I know this conversation, we're just diving right back into the same familiar territory. It's an old story by this point. It's a little exhausting talking about the whole the greediness, the capitalism. It's frustrating because then you get all these other stories that are like, analysts say that the raising prices of Game Pass was inevitable. This is something that they absolutely had to do. And if you ask Xbox, they'll say it's for the continued growth of the brand and all that stuff. But it's not though. It's just like everything else. It's just like every single other decision that we see them make and we've seen them make recently. None of it is necessary. None of it should have to be inevitable. It's only because it is completely unacceptable to make less money this year than last year. And it doesn't matter how damaging something is over the long term. Long term means nothing. We only care about making sure that we make more money each year. Same is not okay. Less is not okay. Even if it is billions and billions and billions of dollars, even if we're all filthy rich, it doesn't matter. More now than before is the only thing that we will accept. And yes, it is exhausting talking about it over and over again, but it's a thing. It's the reality that we live in, and I absolutely see that reflected in this decision. It did not have to be inevitable. I mean, just look at the numbers. Most people have been signed up to Game Pass Ultimate, which has been, again, I guess $17. The vast majority of subscribers are paying $17 a month. Some people as low as 10, then you got PC Game Pass. So all around there. And hey, it's true that that's not all just pure profit. Microsoft, they have to pay these third-party companies to use their games, to license those games. They pay. And Xbox has said they spend about $1 billion a year. $1 billion a year on getting content on Game Pass. And that's a lot of money. That's a tremendous amount of money. Then you got to consider overhead. You got to consider marketing and all that stuff. So let's just come up with a really, really rough estimate of how much they might be making. Most people have been paying $17 a month. Let's just shrink down the amount that Microsoft is actually getting from people, credit card processing fees, all this different stuff. Let's take what feels to be a very conservative amount. $10. Let's say on average, they're getting $10 a month per user. Well, as of February this year, they reported that there are 34 million Game Pass subscribers. So I got my calculator here. 34 million people times $10. You get 340 million, but then we multiply that by 12 months. It's a little over $4 billion a year. So they're spending $1 billion a year on content, bringing in that's a profit of $3 billion. And you know what? Let's be even more conservative. Let's say that there are fees and overhead that we lowly consumers cannot even comprehend. Let's chop off another billion. Just $1 billion. Just another one. Just right off of there. $2 billion a year. Still multiple billions of dollars per year. And everyone is saying that these price increases were inevitable, that they are somehow necessary. But no, even with, even if inflation, oh no, the money isn't worth as much anymore, so we're technically making slightly less, or anything. It's It's nonsense. It's all nonsense. It's just them unwilling to make even a dollar less than they did last year, because the money right now is the only thing they care about. And it's frustrating because Game Pass is a great deal. Like, it really is. We have all been fairly baffled by it this generation. You really do gain access to a lot of games. Like, I'm never going to downplay the value of Game Pass. I've got so many games on my list, on my, I'm not subscribed to it. I subscribed for like a month so I could make a video on Palworld, and then I did a month so I could play Lies of P. I haven't really, that's basically it for me anytime recently. But I've still got my little list, someday if I need games to play, I can sign up for a month of Game Pass, and I have all these lists. And that list, I mean, dozens of games on that list. I wouldn't be surprised if there were 40 or 50 games on there. Games I genuinely want to play. Like, there's really, and that's, not including all of just the dozens of games on Game Pass that I've already played. There's a tremendous amount of really amazing games on there. You could buy an Xbox, never purchase a single game, just use Game Pass, and you'd still have more games than you could ever play. So it's like, the value is definitely there, and even after raising prices, it's still not bad. The problem, though, is that the more they raise it, the closer they get to that tipping point where it stops being a really great deal. You want it to be a good enough deal that people just don't even think about it. They just have it on all the time. They just stay subscribed to it, so they don't even have to worry about it. That's what you want. But the higher you raise it, you're inching closer to that edge and making it something that people have to do strategically. Something they're okay, well, I'll turn it on for this month so I can play this game, and then I'll cancel my subscription. You don't want that, and it's annoying because they already have this thing that we all feel is a really good deal, and it's making them billions of dollars. Why would you want to disrupt that equilibrium? Why would you want to potentially compromise this great thing? How often do you have a product where the company is making an obscene amount of money from it, and the consumers are all saying, this is a great deal and we are more than happy to pay it? That is rare. That is extremely rare. And Xbox, they really hit on a great strategy, a great formula. And I know that like streaming has been a really big problem, just in the greater industry. And this is another subscription model, and not every company has been having as much success with subscriptions. Either that, or it feels like they're kind of like spiraling towards some eventual bubble bursting. People are getting sick of it. But right here, Microsoft has had its own comfy little thing, and it has been working. So it's just frustrating to once again see them shoot themselves in the foot, because profit now is more important than having a stable, sustainable platform in the long term. Because most of the people getting money from this, the second it stops making them as much money, they just call it quits. They just sell their shares and go to something else. That's why they don't care about long term. And that's what's so annoying, is seeing these companies constantly just engage in these self-defeating, really just toxic practices. And sure, this service is only increasing by a few dollars per month. But again, it's just like, you didn't need to. It wasn't inevitable. I mean, it was inevitable because Xbox, Microsoft, they're following along with all of these gross practices and all that stuff. The unchecked capitalism and all that, the need for growth above all things. Like, sure, I guess it was inevitable because that's the kind of company that they are, but it didn't need to be inevitable. They don't need to inch themselves closer to that ledge. It's so frustrating to see that multiple billions of dollars, not enough. Absolutely not enough. Why? Well, because it was enough last year, but now it's not enough. Now we've decided that it has to be even more this year. And then I am personally disappointed because Game Pass for console. You might not have even heard of that, because that is a service that Microsoft has offered, but it's not surprising at all to see them finally remove it, because for a while now it has seemed like they don't even want you to know that it exists. They want you to get Game Pass Ultimate. They want you to get the online play too. Game Pass for console was just the games. And I don't care about playing online, so that's what I've always gone for. That was only $10 a month. And like, you couldn't even, I feel like for a while, I couldn't even find it on the Xbox itself. You have to like dig deeper. You have to like go on the website to see that it's something that they offer, because they clearly just did not want to offer it. So yeah, not surprising that they removed it, but that's annoying for me because yeah, I don't want to pay for online. That's just wasted money for me. $10? Oh my gosh. $10 to play like a new $70 game for like a month? That's a really good deal. However, I will hand it to them. Game Pass for console essentially being replaced with Game Pass Standard. Game Pass Standard, at least on console, is now the cheapest option. It's $14.99 per month, and I'm not happy about that because that was, you know, not too long ago. That was the price of Game Pass Ultimate. So now the cheapest that I can expect to pay is $15. Still not terrible. It is whatever. But Game Pass Standard is Game Pass, except without the day one brand new first-party releases. That's smart. That's smart right there. And I guess Sony, I haven't really kept up on the subscription model that PlayStation's been doing. Apparently they have something like that. That right there is smart, and I'm actually surprised that they didn't do that sooner, because the whole problem with Game Pass is, even from our perspective, we're like, this is a good deal, but it's kind of a too good of a deal, where like you're going to release a game that you would have otherwise sold for $70, and I'm going to play it for $10-15 and just like be done with it. How is that worth it for you? And like, sure, maybe it'll encourage people to like get on Game Pass so they can play it, but like you can't really measure that, especially because like, you know, I mean, you'd have to pay for Game Pass for several months to equal the price of just buying the one game, and you can't, like, are people spending that much more on Game Pass because of these games? And it is starting to feel like it's not returning the investment that they wanted. They are kind of shooting themselves in the foot by offering their brand new games on Game Pass, you know, and they've said that like growth has not been great. They're kind of reaching market saturation here. The people who want Game Pass are on Game Pass. They're not really getting that many more people, and releasing new games on the service isn't getting that many more people. So it's always felt weird that they gave us day one games. So now, making us pay a little bit extra for the tier that gives you access to day one games, that makes sense. If I were in their position, I would do that too. That makes all the sense in the world. So I'm definitely not blaming them there. That is the very logical move. And I am more than happy to pay less for the tier that doesn't have those day one games. It is very unlikely, especially Xbox. I mean, they don't even put out games. They don't even make games anymore, barely. So like, I don't care about playing whatever on day one. I don't care about playing Call of Duty on day one. This is not going to be a thing for me. So it's nice that we have these options. Overall, though, it's just silly because like inevitably they're going to just raise it again. They're going to raise it again next year. It's going to be $22 for Game Pass Ultimate. You know that it's going to happen. Every time anything happens in the economy, every time inflation happens to even the slightest degree, anytime that they have some extra thing they gotta pay for, or just anytime they didn't make quite as much profit in a year as they wanted, they're just gonna raise them again. They're just gonna get closer and closer to that cliff. They are going to further and further compromise that equilibrium that they have now. And that is just frustrating to see. You got a goose, and it's laying plenty of golden eggs at a really decent pace. You don't need to squeeze the poor thing that hard.